There was plenty at stake for top crews and riders in the Wreckers 500, the last event of the South African Off-Road Championship. All but 2 titles had been decided prior to the Wreckers event, with the special vehicles honours on 4 wheels and the 250 class on 2 wheels still up for grabs.
Well, it's a new concept. It's got the new type of suspension in it, and we've got a Hewland transmission with a Porsche motor on it, and it's working very well. We've tested the car for 360 kilometers, and we've basically we've sorted the car out, so we're confident that we can pull it off. I've sold my old car to Greg Wiebel, and he'll be racing that car. He's got it here for the first time. We've sorted it out, so I think he'll do very well. He's a good driver, and I'm confident that he'll be in there. He's unknown, and I think he can pull it off as well. He'll give some guys a big surprise.
The fight in the special vehicles class was between reigning champion Bux Carolyn and veteran Richard Schilling.
Well, I admire him because it's definitely difficult to sort a car out, and it's such an important occasion. I mean, he knows that I have to win the championship, and I think he's brave.
In the 250 bike class, the fight was between Alfie Cox and the injury-hit Jeremy Davies.
I'm not 100%, so I'm not actually... I don't know if I should be here or not, but I must just carry on and try. You know, mustn't give up. Anything can happen. But maybe I'll have a good run. We'll see. Today, if my wrist doesn't hold out on my knee, then I won't ride tomorrow.
Basically today, I've just got to finish the race, get 1 or 2 points, and I've won the championship.
But I wish you good luck, and I hope that you don't get too many thorns into your bums and all over the place.
Not for me. Right, gentlemen, now just a couple of things going
After the
here.
obligatory driver's briefing, it was down to business in the short speed section to determine start positions on day 2. It came as no surprise when Philip Milan and Richard Leek in the rapid Toyota Hilux Turbo posted the quickest time. Milan and Leek were followed by race promoter Klaus Degener and former biker Hilton Beattie in the Duckham's Chenoweth in Class 8. Veteran Harry Roscoe was third and led the Class 9 qualifiers in the Protea Cars Raceco. As usual, the Class 5 brigade was led by Alfred van Vuren and Piet Pelser in the Toyota Hilux. Former champions Wilfried Weslau and Dagmar Blankner led Class 2 in the Windhoek Lager VW Beetle. In Class 15 for experimental vehicles, it was the father and son team of John and Joe Smith who led the way in the Radical Mini Mag powered by a Kawasaki motorcycle engine. Ferdi Pieterse and Colin Aitken led the Class 10 qualifiers, with Nick Alant and Ari Riedeling-Hayes quickest in Class 3 in their Toyota Hilux. Reigning production vehicle champion Craig Hopkinson and John Angus took the honours in Class 7 in the VW Varja and were again going smoothly. Stuntman and powerboat racer Paw Skippers headed Class 4 in the Gearmax Ford Bucky. Heading the qualifiers in the bike section was Jeremy Davies, fresh from his second place in the Camel Corsica 1000. Davies was locked in battle with fellow Springbok Alfie Cox for the 250 class championship. Also fresh from an overseas triumph was Errol Dalton, who was 4th fastest to lead over the 250 class. In the 200 class, there was an impressive performance from John Hodgson, who was 8th overall on the Pelham Products KTM. Before the start of the race proper, leading qualifier Philip Milan had his strategy mapped out.
Ja, ons het gister hard gewerk en gelukkig skoon gery, en dit is die groot ding. En ons het uit die moeilikheid uitgebrei, uit die rotse uitgebrei, en ons is gelukkig om eerste hier te wees. En maar ek dink ons gaan meer konservatief te werk gaan vir die volgende paar ure en hoop ons sal graag hier wil bly. Nie net reg voor.
The first part of the route is completely virgin. It's new. We haven't used it before, so I don't really know it. The latter half I raced last in 1987 when I won the Sun City 400. So I'm looking to a good run, and we'll have to see what happens.
Well, it's madness trying to overtake Klaus. I mean, he's another kind of guy. So I'm going to sit behind and play the waiting game. The race is on. He's racing me, I'm racing him. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah, it's fun. That's it. Thank you.
There was plenty of expensive and very quick machinery at the start. Philip Milan and Richard Leek led the field away, and ahead of the crews lay 4 grueling laps of 100 kilometers each through some tough territory. Klaus Degener, hoping for an end to the bad luck that has dogged him all season, was in hot pursuit of Milan and Leek. For Degener, a win would have been a nice way to end a frustrating season. For the off-road faithful, the major interest lay in the duel between Bucks Carolyn and Richard Schilling. Carolyn was out for the first time in his new Natal Earthworks Raceco, powered by a Porsche engine, in what was a calculated gamble. For Schilling and co-driver Fred Levesque, the ground rules were clear-cut. They had to beat Carolyn and Kenny Skolthammer to win the Special Vehicle Championship. For Harry Roscoe, the simplest way to avoid a steep bank into a riverbed was to overshoot the turnoff. Roscoe was soon back on course, although he probably had a few words to say to himself, but the episode did not cost him much time. There were no such problems for Arnold and Estelle Mathieu in the ex-Derek Pinoy Sandmaster. The pair were going along steadily and were handily placed in the competitive Class 8. Alfred Van Vuuren and Piet Pelser have dominated Class 5 all season in their Toyota Hilux. The pair were once again out front in their class and looking set for another good points haul. Another combination having a smooth run was the experienced Veslau and Blankner pairing. They were well in command in Class 2. Things weren't going so well for the top Nissan crew RP Reinecker and Lucas Dreyer. They were struggling with mechanical problems and were eventually forced to retire. With Philip Milan and Richard Leek also running into problems, Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Skolthammer had moved into the lead. It was, however, a tenuous advantage, with Richard Schilling and Fred Levesque in a menacing second place. There are times in off-road racing when trying to pass other traffic is a problem. Roger Westermeyer was held up behind Freddie Stoshek and, out in the wilderness, learnt that hooters often don't mean a darn thing. In off-road racing, unfortunate navigators also have to assume some awkward poses. For Craig Hopkinson and John Angus, retirement was just around the corner. For Carolyn and Skolthammer, there were no thoughts of retirement. Now on their second lap, the pair was still in the lead and going well. Philip Milan and Richard Leek had dropped down the field after their problems and were going flat out to make up some time on the leaders. Despite their setbacks, Milan and Leek were still leading Class 6 by a handy margin. Not far behind the leaders, Richard Schilling and Fred Levesque were making a determined effort in the Motortech entry to close the gap. The pair were pulling out all the stops, and it was clear the Special Vehicles title was in for an exciting finish. Klaus Degener is one of the hardest chargers in the business. In typical fashion, Degener was driving on the limit, with navigator Hilton Beattie probably wishing he was back on a motorcycle. John Lambert and Roy Field were taking it a little easier in the Digidor Sandmaster. The pair were going along steadily, but were among the latter retirements in an event that saw less than half the original starters make it to the end. Newcomer Greg Weeble in the ex-Bucks Carolyn car took a little time to settle down. Weeble then started to move his way through the field in an impressive performance, and he is a driver to watch in the future. Off-road racing is also not without its lighter moments, and the law, according to Murphy, also strikes in areas like Boshoek. The Parker-Van Zyl combination were tootling along without a care in the world when they were a little over-ambitious in their choice of an alternative route. A little pressure from the rear soon put matters right. A turn of the key and Parker and Van Zyl were ready to rejoin the fray. A happy ending also saw them go on to win Class 7. On lap 3, Bux Carolyn and Kenny Skolthammer were still out in front, but behind them, Klaas Degener and Hilton Beattie had moved into second place. The pair were in hot pursuit of the leaders, with Degener pushing as hard as he could. The unfortunate Richard Schilling and Fred Levesque were slowed by punctures and had dropped back to third place. Greg Weevil and Warren Claassen were still going strong and had worked their way into fourth place overall. There was also a good performance from Abdul Variwa and Hanif Hussain, who showed plenty of perseverance on the way to third in Class 2. Veteran Jack Spencer was also motoring steadily on his way to 6th overall and victory in Class 9. Stratford Vogt and Gillo de Greef completely dominated Class 4 in the Gillo Engineering Toyota Hilux and were the only finishers in the category. For Alfred van Vuuren and Piet Pelser, matters weren't going so well. They got themselves well and truly bogged down and in the process partially blocked the route. Leaders Bux Carolyn and Kenny Skolthammer were forced into bypassing the stricken Toyota. Richard Schilling and Fred Levesque, back in second place after Klaas Degener ran into mechanical problems, also had to take an alternative route. In the true spirit of an off-road race, Philip Milan and Richard Leek, although trying to make up lost ground, still found time to stop and help haul Van Vuuren and Pelser out of the mire. Bert Greef managed to avoid mud and other pitfalls on his way to victory in Class 10, with rally driver Glenn Gibbons picking up second place in Class 5 in his Toyota Hilux. Another off-road veteran, Linton Draper, showed a welcome return to form with second place in Class 6. In Class 5, it was the Bill Angus Derek Weatherall Toyota which pushed Glenn Gibbons back into second in the class. At the finish, the checkered flag was waiting for Bux Carolyn and Kenny Skolthammer, who also finally clinched the Special Vehicles title. Second place and second in the championship race went to Richard Schilling and Fred Levesque. A happy Carolyn nevertheless paid tribute to his friend and rival.
Well, it's a pity there's got to be a winner, because Richard's been, not only is he a personal friend of mine, we beat him and we've had a good season between us, so we won the championship. It's fantastic for us, but I feel for him, he also deserved it. It's just one of those things. That's what racing's about.
I tried very hard. I had a puncture on the second and the third lap, which I reckon cost us probably 10-12 minutes. He won by 10. But no sour grapes, he deserves it.
There we have all the class winners in what was a fitting end to an interesting season. The Bike Brigade started out at the same time as the four-wheel competitors, but followed a different route. Poleman Jeremy Davies was soon forced to withdraw through injury, with fellow Springbok Alfie Cox everyone's favourite to win. Lesotho rider Patrick Andrews on the Winston Yamaha was also expected to be a frontrunner, along with Barger 1000 class winner Errol Dalton in the 500 class. Saki Niemann was on home territory, with Uvi Trumper a long way from his Namibian stamping grounds. Gavin Nimmo set the second fastest time in the qualifying session, but ran into race day problems and gradually slipped down the field. There were no such problems for Winston Yamaha star Richard Manning, who was to find himself involved in an intriguing battle with John Hodgson in the 200 class. Kevin Tebbett was expected to give Errol Dalton a run for his money in the over 250 category, with conditions favouring the smaller capacity machines. John Hodgson on the Pelham Products KTM spent the entire event chasing after Richard Manning for top honours in the 200 class. Out in front, Alfie Cox, who spearheaded a Great Barger 1000 class win for South Africa along with Errol Dalton and Dirk Strydom, had taken a firm grip on proceedings. Saki Niemann was putting his local knowledge to good use and had moved up to second overall. Niemann needed all the help he could get because Richard Manning was riding superbly on the Winston Yamaha 200 and was pushing hard in third place. There was no time for Manning to relax either, because John Hodgson was hot on his heels in fourth place with the 200 machines coming into their own on a tight course. Kevin Tebbett and the other riders on the bigger machines were finding it a handful and were slowly slipping behind. Uwe Trumper was holding down a steady third place in the 250 class, with Errol Dalton leading the over 250 category and fifth overall. Teenager Alex Vowles, whose father was racing in the four-wheel category, was having an impressive outing, with Darrell Curtis eventually among the non-finishers. By lap 3, Alfie Cox virtually had the race and the 250 championship wrapped up. With Jeremy Davies out of the running, Cox was the class horse in the field. Saki Niemann was trying hard, but was always losing ground. A playful bovine showing an eye for a pretty lass put one spectator to flight, and there was nothing playful about Richard Manning. He still had his sights set on taking second place from Saki Niemann. In Manning's case, it was the ox who was put to flight. John Hodgson was still holding down fourth place, but could not make any impression on Manning. Behind the Flying Hodgson, the over 250 class was being led by Errol Dalton, who had shaken off the attentions of Kevin Tebbett. Dalton also put to flight any of the locals who looked likely to get in his way. Kevin Tebbett had dropped a couple of minutes on Dalton, but was still sixth overall and second in class. Behind him, Uwe Trumper was also going along steadily and was not about to let back markers hinder his progress. Young Vowles was also still going well in 8th place in an impressive performance. His dad had dropped out of the four-wheel race, but Alex Jr. was doing a good job of holding off the vastly more experienced Jason Andrieka. Veteran Peter Atkinson is proof that age and treachery often beat youth and enthusiasm. Atkinson was holding down third in the over 250 class with a cold beer at the end of the road, an incentive to get on with it. Over the last lap, Alfie Cox took it easy to score another impressive victory and make sure of the 250 championship. Second place went to Saki Niemann, who was around 8 minutes off the pace set by winner Cox. An impressive performance saw Richard Manning take the 200 class and third place overall. Manning was finally only 48 seconds behind Niemann. John Hodgson in fourth spot was just another minute behind Manning. Errol Dalton was some 4 minutes behind Hodgson in 5th place, but took the over 250 class ahead of Kevin Tebbett by a handy margin. A steady run saw Uwe Trumper take 7th place overall and 3rd in the 250 class. In the ride of the day, young Val showed his potential by slipping into 8th overall and 3rd in the 200 class. Two more 200 machines came home in 9th and 10th places, giving them 5 spots in the top 10. 9th went to Jason Andrieka, with Gavin McLaughlin completing the top 10 ahead of the experienced Gavin Nimmo, Hilton Hayward and Peter Atkinson. For Alfie Cox, there have been tougher victories, but championship wins are ones to savour.
So I went hard for the first lap and nobody had passed me. I went hard on the second lap, nobody still had passed me. I pulled a 6-minute lead and then I just cruised for the next 2 laps, just keeping my gap and keeping myself together. And I'm happy to have won the championship as well.
A great win for Alfie Cox, with spoils also for Richard Manning and Errol Dalton in a memorable finale to the South African off-road season.